Good afternoon, students. I welcome you all for the class. Today, we are going to discuss one of the important topic in the second unit, that is modes of transfer. So here in this class, we are going to discuss two different types of modes of transfer. Actually, there are three different types of modes of transfer. The first one is programmed IO, second one is interrupt-driven IO, and the third is DMA. So today in this class, we are going to discuss only two, and in the next class, we'll continue with that DMA transfer. So modes of transfer. So what do you mean by that modes of transfer? What we are going to transfer? So modes of transfer in the sense it's a modes of transfer of data. Modes of transfer in the sense it's a mode of transfer of data. So transfer of data between what? So here we are going to transfer the data between memory and the IO devices. We are going to transfer the data between memory and IO devices. Suppose here we are going to have the IO devices. Fine. Here we are going to have the memory. And here we are going to have the CPU. Fine. This is memory unit. So modes of transfer in the sense data transfer between the central CPU and the IO devices. Actually, it is not the transfer between the CPU and the IO devices. Like it is the transfer between the IO devices and the memory. Why? Why? Because if we want to fetch any instruction, that has to be done from the memory. If you want to send any instruction, that has to be sent from the memory to the IO devices. So with both of this, we can't do any of the thing. So that is the reason we are including the CPU. CPU is the central processing unit, which is going to do all the things. Fine. With the help of CPU, we are going to transfer any information from input-output devices to the memory and memory from the memory to the IO devices, to and from the memory and the IO devices. In order to have the transfer between these two, we need a CPU. So without the central processing unit, we can't transfer any sort of data. Fine. So that is the modes of transfer. So here, in order to transfer the data between the memory and the IO devices, we call these IO devices as peripheral devices also. Fine. Peripheral devices. So here, this IO devices or peripheral devices, we have to transfer the data from IO to memory or memory to IO with the help of CPU. So this transfer of data is going to be takes place in how many ways? So actually, this transfer of data is going to be taking place in three ways. The first one is programmed IO, second one is interrupt-driven IO, and the third one is DMA. So as we are going to concentrate today majorly on these two, I have not included DMA over here. So in the next class, we will be continuing with this DMA. So DMA is a important topic in which you have to study regarding the DMA circuit, DMA transfer, and DMA controller. So all these things we have to study. So that's the reason we are going to look regarding these two modes of transfer. Fine. So without any delay, we'll be going to start the first mode of transfer, that is the programmed IO. So programmed IO. So here I have initiated programmed IO, interrupt-driven IO, and the DMA. So here, what is a mode of transfer in the sense? The binary information that is received from the external device is usually stored in the which unit? Memory unit. So as I have said you, the information that we got from the external device, that we have to store it in the memory unit. So the information that is transferred from the CPU to the external device is originated from the memory unit. So with the CPU, we can't do anything. What the thing we have to do? If we want to transfer any data from IO device to memory unit, first we have to give that signal to the CPU. What the CPU will do is it will be going to do or fetch the things in the memory, and it will be going to send to the IO devices and vice versa. Fine. So CPU is the important thing over here, but we have to transfer the data between peripheral devices and the memory devices. So data transfer between the CPU and IO devices may be done in different modes. So what are the three possible modes in the sense? Programmed IO, interrupt driven IO, and direct memory access. These are the three different modes of data transfer between the IO devices and the memory with the help of CPU. So first we'll be going to see regarding the programmed IO. So as the name itself indicates, so programmed IO in the sense, programmed IO instructions are a result of IO instructions which are going to be written in the computer program. Fine. Programmed IO in the sense, these instructions are going to be written in a computer program, written like a computer program. Fine. Like a program, we are going to write these instructions. These instructions are the result of IO instructions which are written in a computer program. So here each data item is transfer is initiated by the instruction in the program. As we are writing a program in the sense, we are going to have different instructions. A set of instructions, we call it as a program, right? A set of instructions, we call it as a program. So here each data item transfer is initiated by the instruction in the program. Fine. Here usually we are going to maintain a program controls. So in order to transfer to and from the CPU and the peripheral devices. So here transferring under this programmed IO requires like a constant monitoring of the peripheral devices by the CPU. So that is the reason programmed IO we are not that much using. So here see the theory part over here. Programmed IO operations are a result of IO instructions written in the computer program. So here each data item transfer is initiated by an instruction in the program. Usually the transfer is to and from the CPU register. So here in the programmed IO method, the CPU stays in the program loop until IO indicates that is ready for the data transfer. So what the CPU has to do? CPU has to wait for the data. So here, what's the main motto? So we want to keep our CPU as much busy as possible. But here, what is the CPU is doing? CPU is waiting for that particular information. So instead of performing any task, it is simply waiting. So waiting in the sense, the performance of the CPU is going to be reduced. But we don't want the performance of the CPU to be reduced. So we have to maintain the performance of the CPU to be in high level 4. But here the CPU, instead of doing its work, it is simply waiting unnecessarily, wasting its time. So this is a time consuming process since it keeps the processor busy needlessly. So simply it is keeping the processor in a waiting state. So but what we want to do, we have to make the processor in a working state but not in the waiting state. So how this is going to be avoided in the sense, this is going to be avoided by an interrupt driven IO. Fine. So the drawback of the programmed IO is it is making the CPU to be in idle state. Idle state in the sense keep on waiting when the data is going to be arrived. Like that, it is keep on checking the IO devices data line. So instead of doing its work, it is keep on checking, which is an wasting of performance. So that is the major drawback of this programmed IO. So in order to overcome this drawback, what we have to do is, like we have gone for the second mode of transfer, that is an interrupt driven IO. So here I'll be going to show the example of a programmed IO. So here we want to transfer the data between this IO device and the CPU. Fine. Can we transfer the data between CPU and the IO devices? No, why? Because the CPU is an electronic device, as I have said you when we are going to talk regarding this interface. But IO devices are electromechanical and electromagnetic devices. So these are electromechanical and electromagnetic device. So here our CPU is an electronic device. So there should be exchange of information from electromechanical or electromagnetic to a electronic device. So for that purpose, we are going to maintain an interface. An interface is the one which is going to place between two devices in order to have or in order to provide synchronization between the two devices. So that is the purpose of an interface. Here we have placed an interface. This is called IOP. IOP is nothing but input output interface. So this is the interface. So which is going to transfer the signals or transfer the messages from the IO device to the CPU and from the CPU to the IO devices. So this is the mechanism over here. Initially, so if IO device wants to send any information to the CPU, first what it will be doing is it will be going to activate this IO bus. After activating this IO bus, so what the information it wants to send, some X information it wants to send to the CPU. So after this is activated, what this IO device is going to do is it is going to send the data valid signal to the IO interface. Data valid in the sense, I am ready to send the data to the CPU. So you tell the CPU to take the data. So after the data valid signal, here the status register F flag is going to be set to 1. F flag is set to 1 in the sense, so this is F is a flag. So here the flag is going to have 0 or 1. 0 in the sense no data, 1 in the sense data is available. So whenever the data valid signal has given to the interface, what this interface will do is the status register. It is going to mark the status register, flag register as 1. 1 in the sense now one of the IO device is ready to send the data. So now that data is going to be placed in the data register. So after setting the flag, this data is after setting the flag, this data is going to be kept in the data register. So and here after placing the data on the data register, we are sending a signal to the data bus to the CPU. Fine. So here the data we are going to send to the through the data bus to the CPU. What the CPU will be going to do is it will be going to send the address of this particular IO device. So what is the address? So where the memory has been located. So that address it is going to send from CPU to the IO device, and it is going to send a read or write signal. So suppose this address is 100. So on this data which is present in 100, we have to read the data or we have to write the data. If we want to read the data, it will be going to activate the read signal, and if you want to write the data, it is going to activate the write signal. So either read signal or write signal, either of the thing will be activated. So after the data here, see here, after the data has been sent on the data bus, here this signal, this data accepted signal here, this data accepted signal is going to be deactivated. Why? Because the data has been sent to the CPU. So it is going to be deactivated so that another IO device can send the data to the CPU. So here we are going to have only one IO device over here. Fine. If one IO device is present over here, this is the scenario that is going to be happened. So this is a programmed IO. So based on this program, we are going to do this thing. Fine. So what is the drawback is CPU has to wait for CPU. Here the CPU, what it is doing is it is going to keep on checking this database whether any data is valid or not. So instead of doing its work, it is keep on checking and unnecessarily waiting in order to check this database. So this is the drawback in the programmed IO. So here this is the theory part what I have said you over here. So here that theory part is going to be represented in the flowchart manner. A flowchart of a program that must be written for the CPU is shown in the flow, is shown in this below figure. Fine. It is assumed that the device is sending a sequence of bytes that must be stored in the memory. So here the transfer of each byte requires 3 instructions. So what are the instructions? We have to read the status register, check the status flag and branch to step 1. If not, we have to go to step 3 and read the data register. So whatever the things I have said you in this diagram is going to be represented in the flowchart over here. Fine. This is the flowchart. So here read the data register. Here the CPU is going to read the data register. So CPU, after reading the data register, it is going to check the flag bit. If the flag bit is 1, then what it is an indicate the data is available. If the flag bit is 0, the data is not available. So here check the flag bit. If the data is 1, so here the data is available. So read the status register and transfer the data to memory. So here the operation is completed. And after operation is completed, it is going to disable that enable line and continue with the another program. So this is the first scenario. Here the another case is, here read the data register, check the flag bit. If the flag bit is equals to 0, again what it is going to do, it is keep on reading the data register. So instead of doing its work, what the CPU is going to do over here, so keep on busy waiting in checking the data register. Instead of doing work, the CPU is keep on busy waiting in checking the data register. Here, if the operation is not completed, again, it has to check the data register once again. So this is the operation that is going to be takes place in the programmed IO. So the drawback of the programmed IO is here CPU, instead of doing its work, it is keep on doing and keep on waiting by checking the data register. If the data is available, it is going to proceed. If the data is not available, it is again keep on checking the data register. So this is the drawback we have found in the programmed IO. So in order to overcome that drawback, we have another method called interrupt driven IO. So what an interrupt driven IO is here, an alternative to the CPU constantly monitoring the flag is to let the interface inform the computer when it is ready to transfer. So here what it is going to happen, so here CPU is keep on checking the database whether the data has been available or not. So in interrupt driven IO, so what it is going to happen is, instead of CPU checking the database, we are letting the interface to inform the CPU that some IO request has come. So until then, CPU is busy going to do some Y task. Now CPU is going to do some Y task. When an interface has sent the interrupt signal, INT signal, then what the CPU is going to do is, it is going to stop this Y task and store off. First it will stop and then it will be going to store the details of this Y task. Why? Because till which instruction it has done, what is the status condition, everything it has to store. Why? Because after attending the interrupt, it has to come back to that particular instruction instead of coming from the starting instruction. Suppose if Y task contains 10 instructions, CPU is doing 8th instruction. Now an interrupt has occurred. What the CPU, without storing, if the CPU has attended the interrupt in the sense, so okay, interrupt in the sense it completed. So again, CPU has to resume back to this Y task. From where it will be going to start? Again, it has to start from the first instruction if it has not stored the details. So for that purpose, what the CPU is going to do is, if any interrupt occurs, a CPU will halt the process and store the details of that particular executing process, and then it will go to the interrupt. After doing that interrupt, again it will resume back to the currently executing program. So here what we have done, CPU is not waiting for the IO devices. CPU is going to do its work. So whenever the data is available, the interface itself is going to tell to the CPU that the data is available. So this is the interrupt driven IO. Fine. So in this mode of transfer uses the interrupt facility. Here we are making use of interrupt facility, INT pin. While the CPU is running a program, as I have said, CPU is running the Y program, it does not check the flag. No need to check the flag. However, when the flag is set, the computer is interrupted from proceeding with the current program and is informed of the fact that the flag has been set. So the CPU IO itself, IO interface itself is going to tell to the CPU that the flag has been set. Then what the CPU will do is, the CPU deviates from what it is doing. That means CPU is going to deviate from the Y task to take care of the IOP transfer. Then it is going to transfer from AIOP transfer. So after the transfer is completed, once that transfer is completed, the computer returns to the previous program. So previous program in the sense Y program, while it was doing in the interrupt, previously interrupt. So this is how interrupt driven IO has solved the drawback of the programmed IO. But if multiple generates, so here and the previous figure, only one IOP has been connected. Fine. So here one output device has been connected to interface with the CPU. So only one output device has connected. So my question is, what if multiple devices generates interrupts simultaneously? So instead of connecting one IOP input output over here, if you have connected 1, 2, 3, 4 IOPs, some inputs and some output peripherals have been connected. So these are connected to the interface. Suppose previously only one has connected, it has generated an interrupt. Suppose if multiple peripherals generated the interrupt at the same time, so what it will be going to do? So in this case, we have a way to decide which interrupts to be serviced first. So out of these four, which interrupt has to be serviced first, we have to decide. So this is going to be decided by the concept of priority. So by based on the concept of priority, we'll be going to give a chance to the particular peripheral based on the priority. Suppose this second peripheral is having the highest priority and fourth peripheral is having the second highest, the first peripheral is having the third highest, and third peripheral is having the fourth priority. So if all the peripheral devices at uh, at at the same time, if they have interrupted, in the sense among the four peripherals, we'll be going to decide the priority which is going to have the high priority. Here the second peripheral is going to have the highest priority. So this can be so this is going to be serviced first. So here we call this as priority interrupt system. So this what we call it as priority interrupt system. Why? Because we are going to do the request based on the priority, but not on the first come first serve. See here, the concept of defining the priority among devices so as to know which one is to be serviced first. So among all, which one needs to be serviced first in case of simultaneous request is called, what we are going to call it as? We call it as a priority interrupt system. So this could be done either hardware or software methods. So the software method, we call it as a polling. The hardware method, we call it as a daisy chaining. So this is how we are going to have a different types of modes of data transfer. So programmed IO, which is a simple one, but what is the drawback is, instead of CPU doing its work, it is keep on wasting its time in order to check the data register. So keep on checking the data register instead of doing its work. So that is the drawback we have faced in the programmed IO. So in order to overcome that one, we have gone for another transfer of data mode, which is known as interrupt driven IO. So in this interrupt driven IO, as the name itself indicates, interrupt in the sense like halting the present execution of the CPU for some time. So that we call it as an interrupt. So here what we are going to do is, CPU as usual, it is going to execute some task. So when we want to do any IO to memory transfer, so then the IOP interface is going to send an interrupt to the CPU. So that CPU will be going to stop executing that particular instruction, current execution, and it is going to store the details of the currently executing instruction, and then it is going to attend the interrupt. After completing the interrupt, so by checking that details where it has stopped, it will be going to resume from that thing. So here the thing is, if there is only one interrupt, then we can do like that. The thing is, if there are many interrupts, what will happen? So simultaneously, if many devices have been connected, many interrupts have come simultaneously, what the procedure we want to do? So if many interrupts are there, we are going for the priority services. So priority in the sense giving preferences, high preference, low preference, first preference, second preference, like that. So if there are 4 peripherals, among the 4 peripherals, what we are going to do is, we are going to give preferences to the 4 peripherals, first preference, second preference, third preference, like that. So by making use of those preferences, we are going to execute one by one. So how we are going to execute? There is a method, software method we can execute that simultaneous one, and hardware method also we can do the task. If you are going to talk regarding the software, so we call that technique as a polling. If you are going to do with the hardware, we call that concept as a daisy chaining. In the next class, we'll be going to see the concept of software, that is polling, and the concept of hardware, that is daisy chaining. So that's all for today's class, students. Hope if you are going to have any doubts, please let me know to my email. And in the next class, we'll be going to continue this interrupt driven IO, that is the software and the hardware, that is the polling method, and this daisy chaining method, along with the DMA. Thank you all, students. Have a great day.